Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anissa Sabi-George, and I'm chair of the Boston City Council's Committee on Education. In accordance with Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 executive order, modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law and relieving public bodies of certain requirements, the City Council will be conducting this hearing virtually. This enables the City Council to carry out its responsibilities while adhering to public health recommendations and ensuring public access to its deliberations through adequate alternative means. Today's hearing is on number 0170 in order for a hearing regarding the work of the Boston Student Advisory Council and their policy agenda. This public hearing is being recorded and live streamed on boston.gov/city-council-TV. It will also be rebroadcast at a later date and time on Comcast 8, RCN 82, and Vios Channel 1964. We will take public testimony at the end of this hearing. If you wish to testify via video conference, please email Cora Montrond, cora.montrond, M-O-N-T-R-O-N-D, at boston.gov to sign up. When you are called, please state your name and affiliation or residence and limit your comments to no more than 2 minutes to ensure that all commenters can be heard. You may also submit written testimony by emailing ccc.education@boston.gov. This afternoon, I'm joined by a number of my colleagues, including Councillor Braden, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Arroyo, Councillor Mejia. I think I've got everybody on there. And would like to briefly introduce panelists before giving my colleagues an opportunity to give brief opening remarks. Today, we are joined by Bsac President and Senior of the Burke, Catillo Barbosa. We are also joined by Bsac Vice President, Senior at the Josiah Quincy, Anna Zhao, as well as Bsac member, Senior at Boston Arts Academy, Katie Malcolm S., and Bsac member, Sophomore Theo Bryant, Isabel Rayo, Bsac member, Junior at Boston International Newcomers Academy, or BINCA, Catherine De Jesus Martinez, Bsac member and Mayor's Youth Council member, Junior at the O'Brien, Nesage Ware, Bsac member, freshman at Boston Latin Academy, Daniel Morales, and Bsac member, Junior at the Henderson, Zaira Mercier, and Bsac alum, Ayomide Olo Moyewa, and I'll have everyone correct me afterwards, and Bsac School Committee Representative and Senior at Boston Latin Academy, Kamani James. We also are joined by Miss Maria Estrada, who's a Bsac Student Engagement Manager, and Monica Roberts, BPS Chief of Student, Family, and Community Engagement. So I welcome, I'm sorry, a few of the students, I may have mispronounced your names. Please, when we do get to your comments in your presentation today, that you correct me, please. So I'd like to first call, and I see that Councillor Flaherty is in the wait room, if someone could let him in. I'd like to start with a brief opening statement by Councillor Braden. Welcome, Councillor Braden.
Thank you, Councillor Sabi-George, Madam Chair. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon and hear more about the work of Bsac and their policy agenda, and I won't take any more time. I'm just looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braden. Councillor Campbell. Brief opening statement, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. I'm having some, there we go, some Zoom issues. I was like, long story. First of all, no, thank you, Councillor Sabi-George, for holding the hearing. Thank you, of course, to all the incredible students for your leadership, for your work. We're all, of course, so proud of you. We wish we could be in person, but we're not. So looking forward to the conversation, absolutely looking forward to supporting the work. And also listening your agenda items and how we can work in partnership. So thank you guys all for your leadership. Thank you, Councillor Sabi-George.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. And then we have Councillor Mejia, followed by Councillor Arroyo. Councillor Mejia. Councillor Mejia for a brief opening statement.
Yes, very brief. Thank you, Chair. Sabi-George, I'm here to support and listen in on the Bsac agenda, and more importantly, all things that deal with young people. We need to not only show up, but we need to take the lead. from those who are living the realities. And I think that Bsac has done an amazing job at amplifying their issues. So I'm here to listen in and support and see where we go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Councilor Arroyo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to keep the camera off only because my internet service has been poor and it stutters when I actually put the camera on. But I do want to say that I'm incredibly excited to hear from you all today. I'm mostly going to be here listening and taking notes because, like Councilor Mejia said, you are living the realities right now. And frankly, the education and the way that you're receiving your education right now, literally none of us have ever had to experience. And so I'm very interested in hearing directly from you on how you see the ways in which we can be allies and accomplices in doing the work. So I look forward to hearing from you all directly, and I'll be here for the entire hearing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Flaherty has joined us. Councilor Flaherty, brief opening remarks. Councilor Flaherty, brief opening remarks.
Stand by, technical difficulties.
We've got you kind of clear.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the discussion and appreciate the panelists' time as well and look forward to listening and learning from some of Boston's brightest.
I love it. Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. And just very briefly, this was really important to me to bring all of you together. It's something we've worked with the Boston Student Advisory Council with over the last year to bring you before us to share your policy agenda. Many of you know that I was a member of the Boston Student Advisory Council when I was in high school, and I know how important and how incredible this group of students is who work to advocate on behalf of their peers across our school district. And when I was a member of Bisac, we worked on very similar issues, and it's amazing to me that we are still working today on so many of these issues. I know that so often the concerns of our students are ignored or not taken into consideration as seriously as they should be. We have begun and are continuing to work to make strides as a city to incorporate youth voices into the many levels of government. I know we have, for example, today, there is a student chief financial officer of BPS this year. Student representation in these places matter. What our students have to say about our schools tells us everything we need to know about how well we are serving them, how well we are preparing them for their futures, and frankly, how well we are respecting them. Our schools ought to be places of learning and growth. Our students ought to be supported in the ways they need to be able to thrive. So until we get to those places, we've got lots of work to do. I'm thrilled to hold this hearing today to turn the council's full attention to the students of Bsac and their policy agenda. This hearing is certainly long overdue. As I mentioned, we've been talking about it for a long time. And I hope it certainly becomes, and part of our original conversations was to make this part of our regular work as a city council. As you prepare through your work at Bsac, your policy agenda in all aspects, not just in education, we should be made aware of your work and your desires as well. So I am grateful that you're all here. I'm going to turn it over to the students and for your presentation. I'm actually not sure who's leading the presentation, so I'm going to let you come. Welcome.
That would be me. Give me one
go.
second. I'm also babysitting simultaneously. One of the wonders of Corona.
I love that positive growth mindset, the wonders of Corona.
Yeah, I think it's brought families closer together without, any sort of a choice, but let's see. All right, we're ready.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you for that, AO, and thank you for the introduction to the counselor, Anissa. Good afternoon. No, not even good afternoon. A phenomenal afternoon to everyone watching and to the counselors. Thank you for this amazing opportunity. It's truly great to be here. My name, as City Councilor Anissa had said, is Cadio Barbosa, but please feel free to call me Cat. I'm the current president of Bsac, and me and my amazing crew of young people are just going to go through a presentation and talk a little bit about who we are as Bsac, a little bit of our projects, and just essentially meet the team. And in terms of who we are as Bsac and what purpose we serve, The purpose of Bsac is to serve as a youth body that advises the district on policy while bringing young people to the table and incorporating their voices into conversations that revolve around their life and just student life within BPS.
Hello, everyone. Just to introduce myself again, my name is Anna Zhao. I'm a current senior at Josiah Quincy. To start, I just want to thank City Councilor Sabi George for welcoming us into this space. So I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about who we are as Bsac. We, the Boston Student Advisory Council, is a body of elected students from across the district representing all BPS high schools, and we help the district identify and address all issues that pertain to students. It's really important for us to put students at the center and the decision-making process, because every single decision made within the district has a direct impact on us, the students. And Bsac is currently and have been co-administered by the Boston Public Schools and Youth on Board.
All right, so Bsac is a youth-led program, but there's also adult allies that aid us young people in the work that we do. Currently, there are 2 adult coordinators, the lovely Maria Estrada, who is the student engagement manager, and Jenny Fernandez, who is the student engagement officer. There's also leadership that comes from Youth on Board, specifically Jenny Sazama, and who is actually the co-coordinator of Bsac and is also the director of Youth on Board. So shout out to the both of them. Also, there's a lot of support that comes from alum and adult allies and staff.
As Bsac, we provide many student leadership and learning opportunities. To start, we engage in a lot of student-led advocacy. Bsac allows students to learn how to write position papers, and we also attend legislative lobbying at the State House and City Hall and in other places of government. And we also have weekly meetings on Mondays and Thursdays, now currently on Zoom because of the pandemic. And we also have developmental opportunities. We have adult staff that support in college and career readiness. And then there's also social emotional wellness support every single Wednesday. And us, the Bsac students, are also a part of the curriculum development and professional development facilitation training for staff within the district. And lastly, Bsac representatives are able to enroll into an elective course called the Bsac Civic course to help support in their leadership development and also improve their GPA and help them boost what they're doing in school.
So Bsac, or the Bsac body, is made up of high school reps from all across the district. And essentially how we're elected, it happens at our schools, either by our school officials or by the student government within our schools. And they have their own process for doing that and selecting students who they want to serve on Bsac for their school. And if you look up onto these slides, we actually have 49 reps across the 30 schools that are that we have serving on Bsac. So that's amazing. Congratulations and shout out to the team for being able to make that possible. 97 of all BPS high schools are represented in Bsac. And that's actually because, or we actually started off the year with 100% representation. Wanted to make sure I was clear. We had 100% representation, but due to some complications that came about with the Madison member, in terms of capacity, they couldn't serve, but we're still going to make sure that we get that representation and we get back to 100% representation. Now we're down to 97% representation. And just a little bit about who actually is in Bsac. 12% of our students are with disabilities, 39% formerly limited English proficient, and 6% are English learners, 80% are students of color, 16% are white, and 4 are unknown.
Next, we have projects and priorities. Our large Bsac body is made up and divided into 3 smaller subcommittees. First, we have student rights and student voices. This group particularly ensures that the rights and dignities of all BPS students are respected and valued within the district. And then next, we have school climate, culture, and improvement. This group ensures that all students are treated as equal partners in their learning at school and externally, and aim to provide ample resources and pathways for students to achieve success during and outside of school. And then lastly, we have environmental justice. This group ensures that all young people who are most impacted by climate change are frontline communities, communities of color, and communities of low income are put in the center of the conversation in the fight for environmental justice. And next, I'm going to pass it to Catherine.
Thank you so much, Anna, but I am actually going to pass it right now to Massage.
Thank you. Good afternoon, City Councilors. Bsac comes to you today with hopes of gaining your support on many, if not all, of our current projects. You have had the opportunity to hear from my lovely peers, and now I'm honored to discuss our proposal for removing the entrance exam to the 3 college preparatory schools in our city. Before I continue, I urge all of you to ask yourself this one question. Is it fair for a student to be defined by the school they attend? We propose eliminating testing requirements as a part of the exam school admissions process because of its history rooted in racism and segregation meant to keep communities of color out of exam schools. The disparities in our district are inherently problematic. It is with great pleasure that I inform you all that I am in fact a junior at the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science, one of our 3 exam schools. In the 6th grade, my admissions letter said, although I did not score high enough to attend these schools, O'Brien made extra seats for me. I have maintained a 3.7 GPA and remained in the top 25th percentile of my class. I used to constantly question my ability to compete with my peers because I didn't technically get into the school. BPS did that to me. I now know that a test score does not define me or my academic ability or potential. I refuse to witness more students be victimized by a racist and discriminatory system. All means all. And we are doing a huge disservice to students by denying them access to great schools that will prepare them and make them more competitive students in their future college endeavors. We recognize that admissions policies alone will not be effective in closing the opportunity gap for so many students in Boston Public Schools. Further investment in services, especially social and emotional learning counselors, advanced work, and welcoming and supportive community schools can provide students the tools they need to thrive in exam schools, as well as every other high school in the district. What makes one student any better than the next? I would hope not a test score. Thank you. I now pass it to my peer, Catherine.
Thank you so much, Nasaj. So I am actually going to be speaking on now bathroom equity. So some things we've been working on is gender neutral bathrooms, in where we are aware that the new buildings we have right now are implementing gender neutral bathrooms. But what about our old buildings? What we're asking for is to designate a teacher's bathrooms to become a gender neutral bathrooms, and also to change the process on how we access these bathrooms. Students right now are being forced to ask for a key or just to simply ask for permission to step in one of these bathrooms, making the school experience not equitable and emulating part of our school population. Another thing we have been working on is to focus on and to have 100% access to clean and functional restrooms. The majority of our bathrooms in BPS are being reported as dirty and unhygienic, which actually puts in danger the health of our students, causing them to not go to the bathrooms when they really want to go, and just not being equitable and clean at all. When we say 100%, we also mean to get rid of any policies schools have created to prohibit students from going to the bathroom. A lot of schools, for example, say students cannot go to the bathrooms the first 10 or last 10 minutes of a class. We know a lot of things can happen within 10 minutes. Another project on which we have been working on is access to free and good quality menstrual products. The average menstruating person uses up to 17,000 pads their whole lifetime. That's an amount not everyone can pay. Students should not have to fear missing schools or leaking because of their menstruation. I apologize for my mispronunciation. In addition, we are also asking for menstrual products to be inside bathrooms. When any students goes to the bathroom for any natural causes, you do not see them going to the nurse's office to ask for toilet paper. So why are we forcing our girls, the women that go to our schools, to do so? We once again are creating a sexist atmosphere that is unequitable and oppresses women. And I am sure BPS does not want to do that. Therefore, we should have our menstrual products within the bathrooms. And lastly, one of our projects that we have been working on is to have comprehensive health classes in which they can actually inform our girls on how your menstrual period is supposed to go, and how irregularities could actually be dangerous. Our women, our girls, they're not informed of that. They also need to have and receive sexual classes. Let's normalize that. Right now, they're only talking to us about exercise. But at the end of the day, we students, we deserve basic human rights. So I will pass it on to Nasaj again to talk and speak on student vote.
Thank you, Catherine. This is Nasaj again. Originally, Kimani James, our student representative, was supposed to be presenting this part, but he has expressed weariness and disappointment in having to convince people of the need for a student vote. He says, quote unquote, asking why a student representative needs a vote is like asking why someone needs water, end quote. It is a basic human necessity and furthermore a democratic right, end quote. I cannot express enough the disappointment we all have in our district. Our student representative does the same amount of work, if not more, than his colleagues while still managing to be a student. You all can only imagine the hard work and dedication students put into this work on a day-to-day basis. As if it's not enough that our student representative is not compensated for the amazing work that they do, they are not given a decision, they are not given a say in the decisions that affect them the most. I encourage you all to ask yourselves, is it fair that the only school committee member that is living the reality and has to deal with the repercussions of the decisions made by the school committee not have a voice in these decisions? A conversation without us is not for us, and enough is enough. We appreciate Counselor Asabi George for championing student vote, and we would greatly appreciate if all counselors supported obtaining a vote on the school committee for a student representative. We recognize change takes time. However, we believe change happens as fast as the people in positions of power allow it to happen. There is power in numbers, therefore, I expect nothing less but for city councils to come together as a collective and champion the issues that matter to students the most. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Oh, I'm sorry, Katie, while we're just changing slides, I want to just note that Counselor Flynn has joined us. Sorry, Katie, go ahead.
It's okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, City Council. My name is Katie Barfumis once again. I'm a senior at Boston Arts Academy, and on Bsac, I serve on the School Climate, Culture, and Improvement Subcommittee. As you can hear, that's a super long name, so on Bsac, we just call it SCCI. And as SCCI, we work to advise BPS on the issues pertinent to the student experience. We often examine current district policies that we feel aren't working to benefit our young people, and then we work to affect policy change. Because our subcommittee is concerned with any and all policies related to the student experience, a wide variety of projects and campaigns fall under SCCI. Some of our major projects are currently the ones that you see on the slide, which include education funding, counselors not cops, and student privacy protection. With regard to education funding, we are currently working with both BAJA, which is the Boston Education Justice Alliance, and MAJA, the Massachusetts Education Justice Alliance, to represent the interests of BPS students, advocate against possible budget cuts, and push for adequate education funding on both the city and state levels. In collaboration with MAJA, Bisac is currently working to use social media, specifically the platform of TikTok, to push elected officials to fully fund the first 2 years of the Student Opportunity Act. We recently worked with I Have a Future Coalition, which is a group of youth-led grassroots organizations from across the state to put on a rally pushing for Beacon Hill to make affordable housing, juvenile justice, youth jobs, and education funding a priority. Among our many asks of legislators, we asked them to commit to fully funding the first 2 years of the Student Opportunity Act, which is behind on its 7-year funding schedule. Today, together, we also called numerous Massachusetts state representatives and senators, telling them that the current plan for the allocation of funding is not sufficient to meet the challenges of our current crisis. Our state level advocacy also included writing a letter to DESE, urging for the cancellation of MCAS. And on the district level, we have many students from SCCI serving on a variety of committees and working groups, including ones concerning the development of strategic plans for the BPS library services, and ones focused on how BPS can most effectively convey information about school registration to our students and families. Those are some of the highlights from our education justice work this year, and now I'll be passing it on to Daniel to speak about our Counselors Not Cops project.
Hello, everyone. As introduced by my lovely colleague, Katie, I'm Daniel, and I'm going to be talking to you about one of SCCI's projects, Counselors Not Cops. The objective of the abbreviated CNC is to advocate for a lesser presence of policing within school buildings and to transfer funding towards increased social and emotional support for students. Over a course of time, more than $1 billion of federal money has been spent on the enforcement of policing within our own school buildings. Yet what we've seen is that there's still not enough resources sorry everybody, that there's still not enough resources being provided in schools to aid students' mental health. And it is vital for students to have these resources and progress towards this. We've created position papers articulating our opposition to the natural presence of law enforcement in school, and have advocated for the diversion of funds normally allocated to police to be directed towards more extensive social emotional support that would further aid students. In addition to this, we have given students a space within our own restorative circles, as we like to call Wellness Wednesdays, where they can communicate with BPS officers to build a constructive working relationship. And the purpose of all this is to further push BPS into adopting the RJ model, simply the traditionally largely punitive model of discipline. In order to form more positive and professional learning environments, it is important that students are receiving proper mental health support rather than being disciplined by these authoritative figures. And with that being said, I'll pass this on to Zara Mercer to speak more on student privacy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zara Mercer, and I'll be talking about some of our work involving student privacy. As you've noticed, a lot of Bisac's work is defined by our inside-outside relationship with the district, which means we generally have two approaches that we use simultaneously when working on campaigns. We both work within a district with whom we have an excellent working relationship, and through our partnership with Youth on Board, we also work with other youth organizing groups to press for change externally. Our work around student privacy is no different. We are currently working with the Student Migration Movement, or SIM, to push the district to end any collaboration or communication between BPS officers, BPD, federal law, and immigration enforcement. Our work with SIM for the spring will likely focus on pushing for an ordinance banning the use of facial surveillance technology in Boston. Additionally, SIM, along with the Unafraid Educators and several other groups, was instrumental in pushing the district to revise their policy on information sharing. One of these things that came out of this revision in policy was the formation of a district working group to continue work in the information sharing policy. There are two Bsac students as representatives on the school safety working group, which aims to review the new district policy that many advocates still believe is inadequate, being too vague when it comes to certain pieces of language, ensuring that the new guidelines are being implemented and adhered to, and review data on school arrests, the collection of which is delineated by the policy. Now I'm going to pass it over to the Environmental Justice Subcommittee, who are going to talk about some of the amazing climate work being done by our young people.
Thank you so much, Zara. Hello, it's me again. So our Environmental Justice Subcommittee is divided into three smaller groups. The first one is Community Choice Energy, Solar, and Transit. Our team is dedicated to ensuring that the environmental resources that have been historically unaffordable for low-income and marginalized communities become accessible throughout the city and the state. This includes affordable public transportation and access to cleaner energy sources for electricity. We were a part of the task force that helped plan CCE for the whole city for the past 3 years. We also created and led trainings for the public and parents of BPS to spread the word and educate on what CCE means, what fair and equitable renewable energy means, and what it looks like in action. We also wrote the climate action plan for our city. And next, I'm going to pass it to Kat.
I'm back. So this is Kat again. What's up, y'all? I'm actually a part of the Mass Renews Alliance team, and there we serve as representatives of the youth sector on the Mass Renews Alliance. There we focus on creating policy that helps marginalized and frontline communities that would be and currently are affected by climate change most, while striving to create a greener and more sustainable economy through a Massachusetts Green New Deal, which we actually had a launch for, I believe it was 2 weeks ago. It was an amazing event co-hosted by a couple of government officials do I remember them? No, I have a terrible memory. Don't come at me for that. But I'm going to pass it on to the lovely, the amazing Isabel. Take it away.
Thank you, Kat. Hi, everyone. I'm Isabel. I'm a sophomore at John D. O'Brien. And my team, which is the climate education curriculum team, is dedicated to implementing climate curriculum into Boston public schools, as well as equipping teachers and BPS staff with important topics on environmental racism, adultism, and general education in order to fully educate young students throughout the district on the climate crisis and how it could impact them and others around them. We focus on teaching students as early as possible how climate could change their lives and how they could help the world be a cleaner, safer place for all. I will now pass it to Ayo to talk about the mayoral and city council race.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for that. Like she said, we're going to be talking about the mayoral and city council topics. So Youth on Board and Bsac has been working hard in order to write up a platform with the sole purpose of advancing equity and justice in Boston, from issues ranging all the way from climate change and justice, like we just talked about, all the way to race that I don't think that we talk about enough. Even as we speak, it's being worked on painstakingly to be approved, reapproved, and be advanced to the next level. And as we work on it more, we will be sharing this with the city council. In addition, Bsac will also be doing text and phone banking with voters in order to build support for our platform. And we'll be sending them out to all Boston residents, including the candidates themselves. And I'm wondering, I guess you might be wondering what the platform is exactly. Well, we at the Boston Student Advisory Council / Youth on Board, we're well aware of how much power and influence the mayor and the city council has. And as such, we urge the interim mayor and all prospective candidates for that permanent position to really take time, review, and deeply consider the interests, stories, and perspectives of young voices all across Boston that range from a variety of backgrounds, cultures, and socioeconomic conditions, especially in this time of immense and transitional change. Lastly, we wanted to assure the City Council that Bsac will be creating a Youth of Boston forum for the mayoral run. It's going to be organized by the youth for the youth, and it's going to be a series of ice cream socials to later on follow as details allow. Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. It was really thoughtful and I think demonstrates for sure your desire to be involved in issues that are not just about our schools, because this, all of what happens in our city is certainly impacted by you are impacted by all of the things that happen into our city. Just want to check what was next on our list. So at this point, we open up to questions from council colleagues to the work that you're doing, what you've been presented, and if there's any other additional questions they may have. So I'd like to first start with Councillor Braden, and we'll do a 5-minute timer. Councillor Braden. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I really congratulate all of the members of Bsac for their presentation this afternoon. I am very, very impressed with the work they're doing and tremendous activism to make lives better for students in Boston public schools and across the city and across the state for that matter, because Boston leads often. I had a quick question about the entrance exam and your approach to the entrance exam, their experience of how detrimental or how difficult that experience is. I'd like someone to speak to that. And then also the environmental justice is hugely important. Just really, I commend them for their education and outreach to families on the community, have it here. Community choice energy is really important, but what other work are we doing to educate our communities and families about environmental issues? Those are the two questions.
Can we just speak or is somebody?
Yeah, so whoever would like to answer that question is welcome to jump in.
Okay. Hello, this is Bsac, where again, I'm a junior at the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your question. Are you asking how difficult the admissions process is?
Your experience of the admissions process, what you found was difficult, what was that impact? I grew up in a system where we had an admissions exam, and I know it was very difficult for students who weren't selected. So just any experiences that you would like to share, or how you would like to see the system fixed?
Definitely. The admissions process is extremely difficult. First of all, I think there are definitely disparities in the way students are given resources to study for the exams. They have countless programs in Boston to study for these exams. However, we don't all have the same access to them. I know for a fact some of my friends were accepted into a program called Stepping Stones that helped them study for exam school entrances. However, I was not even told about that program. I wasn't told about any test preparatory programs. Therefore, I took that test completely blindsided, didn't even know that I should have studied for the test, didn't start studying until the night before because I was unaware of how difficult that exam would be. Getting the letter saying that you didn't even score high enough to get into any of the exam schools, but O'Brien has made extra seats for you. It just makes you feel bad about yourself as a student. It makes you feel incapable and able. And honestly, when I got to the school, I just realized I'm just as great as any other student here. I'm more than capable of being here. And I'm sure a lot of other students feel that way. You also have to think about the process of leaving your friends coming from elementary school. So when your friends don't get into the same school as you do, I had a lot of friends go to BLS and they turn on you, you're not smart enough, you weren't smart enough to get into the school. I think it creates a division between our students and between the BPS district overall. And I'd like to pass it to our student rep Kimani to speak more to that.
Thank you, Nasaj, and thank you, Counselor, for that question. I'd like to just replace, Nasaj really said everything. I just like to replace the word difficult with racist. The exam school's admissions process is racist, period. There is no workaround, and the solution shouldn't be a workaround, and it should not be a Band-Aid solution, period. The entire system needs to be dismantled because standardized testing in general is racist. Back when I was in the 8th grade, and my family wanted me to take the exam school, the ISE, to get into the school. I had white friends who were going to like much more better funded schools with much more resources. Parents can pay for programs outside of school, programs I'd never heard about. And I was getting like tests that were already done and marked up, and sort of how to erase them and not look at the answers. I mean, this is the reality, like we were getting sort of hand-me-down resources or no resources at all to get into these schools. And when you look at the larger picture, the fact that these schools are funded the most when some of them have endowments that are ridiculously large is absolutely unacceptable, is the large representation of what inequity looks like in BPS. So I just wanted to emphasize Bsac and my colleagues' push towards reforming the exam school's admissions policy. And I just want to be very clear because I feel as though sometimes adults don't really get to, and people in power don't really get to hear the cut and dryness of these types of statements. But this isn't supposed to be a Band-Aid solution. So whoever ends up getting into power, I like when we talk about politics and races, I don't care too much for it. I care about if we are giving our students what they need. So, for whoever's going to do whatever about the exam school admissions policy, Band-Aid solutions aren't allowed because you'll end up having the same problem. We need to dismantle the system and build it from the ground up so that it fully supports Black and Brown students, period.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Braden. Councilor Campbell.
Thank you so much, Councilor Sabi George, and thank you to all the students for your leadership and of course for that incredible presentation. It's excellent. It's beyond helpful, and really just grateful for the work you guys have been doing. A couple of questions, because I know the 5-minute buzzer will go off. One was on the school resource officers piece and the lack of guidance counselors, mental health clinicians. It constantly comes up. So would love to hear some more thoughts on that, specifically what the organization's conversations have been with the district on this specific issue. And then this second question is, obviously all of you guys are fully engaged, but the question that always comes up is, how do we better engage students and families in everything that the district does, more proactively, less reactively? So I'm curious, from where you guys sit, what strategies are effective engaging students who may not be formally a part of Bsac, but obviously a part of our student population? How does, what works for you guys? What are you finding being effective? And what isn't working? And what can the districts do better based on what you guys are already doing?
Yeah, I can hop in on that. Once again, my name is Katie Malcolmus. I'm a senior at Boston Arts Academy. And so I think in regards to the counselors not cops questions, we recently have been holding restorative justice circles with SROs, which was actually facilitated by our the restorative justice head within BPS. And I think a lot of our conversations with the district have been around how can we reevaluate and transform. I think ideally for Bsac, our stance is we believe more funding should be taken from the SROs and go towards mental health resources such as social workers, guidance counselors. But on multiple occasions, the district has made it pretty known that they feel SROs are necessary. And so I think right now we're really trying to reframe our thinking in what are the different ways in which we can evaluate how SROs are being trained. Do they have to be run through BPD? Is there another evaluation? Can't social workers be trained to be responsive rather than reactive, like how our SRO officers are being trained, and really trying to reevaluate that. And in regards to the student and family engagement and how we feel like students and families can become more engaged in our district, it really boils down to information justice and making sure that the information is accessible and being advertised to our families. I think something last week in our student-led retreats that we really got into was that if the information is not publicly advertised to us, then it's simply not there. Because if we don't know about it, then it's not being utilized. And I think one way, especially for students, is by implementing into curriculum how our district works, or implementing into our schools, making it mandatory that every week schools have school-wide assemblies where they have to give updates on the district. Because in reality, the only thing our students are obligated to do is to show up to school and to show up to class. And so our district needs to be meeting the students at where they're at and making that information present in the spaces that we are at. Not a lot of people are going to know to scour through the BPS website to find information on who is on the nominating panel for the new school committee rep. And so really bringing that into the classrooms and showing our students, this is how our district works. This is what's going on currently, and making sure that that's done consistently. Because like you said, City Councilor, making sure that it's not reactionary, but making sure that it's really proactive. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is really working on information justice and making information consistently and proactively known to our community members.
I'm going to jump in really quickly to add, especially for climate education. We've done many facilitations about adultism to teach young children how you will be affected in the world of activism and how you stand up for yourself. We've also done a facilitation on climate change in all classrooms, where we talk to teachers, BPS teachers, on how to implement climate curriculum inside their own curriculums that BPS gives them. We also did a supporting your youth activist to parents to see how they themselves can support their young activists. And this doesn't have to be, so they can learn from the inside of school what climate education is without having to be part of Bsac, like you said. And we just love giving workshops and teaching young children and young students what it means to be an activist and what it means to be a youth leader.
Thanks, Isabel. And I know Catherine and Zaira also wanted to respond. Catherine?
Sorry.
Oh, Zaira, whoever.
Okay, this is Catherine. I 100% agree with Katie and Isabel, but I also think that we need to acknowledge and take into consideration language barriers, normalize that in a sense, normalize translation, normalize actually reaching out in different languages to different parents. And I am using my mom as an example. She doesn't know English, therefore she's not as involved in the district as she would like to be. So I definitely think that we need to take that into consideration and do it in a sense, because we need parents not only that speak English, but we need parents that represent all of us.
Thanks, Catherine. Zaira?
I just wanted to quickly echo something that Katie had said. Again, reaching out to family and just students and staff is a big thing. At my school, at the Henderson Inclusion School, what we try to focus on is reaching out instead of having people come to us. So a lot of times I'll have my admins send out like mass emails saying, hey, we're having a student government meeting or a BSU meeting. So if you want to come join in and sit down and listen to what's happening within your schools, reaching out, and even sometimes incentives are a big part of that, saying, hey, if you come to this many meetings, you can get a $10 gift card to Dunkin' Donuts, something that will make students actually want to show up and come, or even just ask them, hey, what is something you want to see happen in your school? And then say, oh, okay, we're going to talk about this in our next meeting. How about you come and even put your little 2 cents in there? So I just want to say that.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Sabi George. Thank you, guys. This is great.
Thank you, Counselor Campbell. Counselor Mejia?
Yes, so I've been multitasking here, listening. All means all. Yes, Naisaj, I see you. I hear you. Come on, you're so great. All y'all, I'm incredibly grateful for your voice and your advocacy. I know that I'm here for all of it. All of the things that you're talking about are things that I've been talking about for 100+ years here in the education space. So many of these things are not new. I am a Boston Public School graduate, and my daughter now is a BPS student. So incredibly grateful for you all and your advocacy to ensure that our kids have what they need. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit more about some of the mental health and wellness piece of it. Just curious, what can we be doing more, aside just from the funding? What else should we be paying attention to in terms of mental health and wellness for students? If anyone could talk to me a little bit about that. I'm really committed to the mental health and wellness space because I feel like we've asked our students to come back to school without processing all the trauma that they're carrying in their backpacks. We've asked teachers to be in front of students without even taking a moment to think about what they're carrying. And we're asking parents who are struggling right now to make their own ends meet, some of who are facing even eviction, to turn into teachers and to support remote learning. So there's a lot of trauma, untreated trauma, that we're not talking about. So I'm just curious, as students, what are some of the things that we should be paying attention to in the times that we find ourselves in?
So I wanted to speak on this real quick, and anyone else who was gonna speak, please jump in after. But real quick, I was just thinking back to like my personal experience in terms of just mental wellness and just mental well-being, mental health, and all that good stuff. And for me, it's been really difficult, I'd say, this past couple of months. And it's exactly as you're saying, we're going into schools, we're going back into these environments where there's still a lot going on in our just our environment. There's still a lot of hate going on in our communities. There's so many things that students are dealing with that we're not necessarily addressing, but we're just asking a lot of them to go back into these spaces like we're robots, and that we can be programmed to do as they tell us to do. And it's even more messed up or it's ridiculous and pathetic that teachers as well have to deal with that too, because we should definitely pay attention to our students, because it's like what all of my peers have been saying, without the students, there would be no district. And I will continue to say that and firmly believe in that. So we make up the district, and we should be paying attention to the students, but we should also be paying attention to the teachers as well, because they also help to make a lot of what happen in the district. So, I mean, I just feel like it's a lot to do with making sure that we're providing spaces not only for the students, but the teachers as well, to decompress and just let out all those emotions that they may be feeling, and just accept that, because we can't expect to be 100% normal when our circumstances aren't 100% normal. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. And I don't want to get buzzed out, because I know Asabi George runs a tight ship. I'm not sure if I have any more time. I just want to go on record. I have 2 more minutes. I just want to go on record to say that I fully support ensuring that that the student representative on the school committee not only has a vote, but they also get that stipend, right? Because they always expect people who have no resources to show up and be volunteers. And they want to pick our brains, but picking our brain, and we're done with that picking the brains season. We need to make sure that people get compensated for their expertise, right? And I think lived experience needs to be on that consultation bracket. And so I think that I just want to go on full support and letting you know, especially Mr. Kamani James, I know how hard you've been working on this whole situation, that you know that I am in full support of not only just having a voice, but that you also get paid, because you go hard for the district all day, every day. So just wanted to just put that out there. And all of your policy recommendations that you have set forth, know that I agree with everything that has been said here. It's music to my ears to hear young people fighting for the things that I know are gonna make the lives of all of our students much better, including the exam schools, all the racism that exists, the funding, the education, all of that. I'm here for all of it. So you have my full support. And thank you so much for your advocacy.
I also wanted to add one more
Go
thing
ahead.
that last minute. I so apologize because I think Kat hit the nail on the head, but I want to make sure that we also do note that we get counselors and resources that are for us, by us, so reflective of our diverse student population that we have here in Boston, such a melting pot, and it should also be reflected in the faculty and in the resources that we have. Thank you.
Ashe Ayo.
Nice job. Very good. Councilor Arroyo. Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you so much to all of you, frankly. Thank you, Madam Chair. But thank you so much to all of you for everything that you said. Like, it's tough to follow Councilor Mejia because, frankly, we're of like minds on this. Basically, everything she said, I second. And, you know, Councilor Campbell asked my question about school police or newly rebranded school resources officers. Councilor Mejia asked my question about specifically mental health. I know when I was at the O'Brien, we had 2 guidance counselors, and it wasn't until I was in college that I realized guidance counselors were supposed to help you get into college, because our guidance counselors did so much work actually trying to work through folks' mental health while we were there, and that's not really what they're for. And so my hope is we can get more resources for you for that. One of my questions that I have is about ethnic studies. Obviously, we're trying to make sure that we incorporate ethnic studies in BPS. Many of you have now been at BPS for a little while, have probably experienced what I experienced when I was at BPS. You know, I was in a AP history class when I was at O'Brien, and when they talked to us about good slave owners, right? So I had those experiences. And so my question for you all is, one, have you seen what you would call a good integration of ethnic studies? And if not, what do you envision being a good? I see a lot of heads shaking no already. So y'all can jump to start number 2, which is, what would good ethnic studies look like for you in BPS curriculum-wide?
That is an amazing question, Councilor Arroyo. Thank you so much. This is actually something that was discussed in a retreat that I held last Monday with several people here about educational curriculum and pedagogy within the district, where many students attended and lended their voice. And the need for ethnic and race studies class was brought up. To put it simply, you know, I'm very cut and dry always. We need it to be a graduation requirement, period. There are adults and quite frankly, there are adults walking around having ignorant conversations about race and ethnicity and using that ignorance to oppress people, number one. Number two, there are young people walking around sort of going through identity crises, not knowing who they are and how to hold conversations in diverse spaces with diversity in ethnicity, race, and just diversity in thought, period. So what does a comprehensive ethnic and race studies course look like in BPS? It looks like its own class. It looks like its own class that is a graduation requirement that has units 1 through 4, maybe, or however many units, that touches upon both the historical and contemporary lens of ethnic and race studies and the social construct, the idea of it being a social construct and how it's utilized in things like politics, sociology, and government in today's society. I know the BTU has created some type of model that teachers and I believe students can self-enroll in. And I think that needs to, the district needs to go to them and sort of hire them to let them create that infrastructure to implement into schools, because we need it. We need it not only because we need to educate our adults and our young people, but we also need to unlearn a lot of things. We walk around, we don't realize that we walk around with a lot of colonized minds, a lot of colonized ideas, and all of that needs to be unlearned. It needs to be unlearned. It needs to be taught before it's learned and conditioned by society.
I'm going to go really quickly. I know there's a lot of people in line, but since you are from OB, I wanted to emphasize that I am in AP World History right now, and I have the same teacher I did last year for history, and he is an amazing teacher, and he is Brazilian, and he's been underrepresented throughout his career, and he really, Robert Strayer, his textbooks, sometimes this teacher steps away from the textbook and really goes deeper into personal experiences and his own experiences, telling us that when the book talks about Columbus being good, we turn back and look at the real evidence and look at what actually happened instead of always going by the book. Teachers give you work papers by the book. That's not how it's supposed to be. We need a human interaction. We need a teacher who has been oppressed, a teacher that knows what our students feel like. That's what really needs to be implemented in schools. That's all.
And then Kat and Zyra, I think, and Anna have their hands up.
All right, so I'm gonna make mine real quick because Kimani basically just said all that I was trying to say. Like, I feel like a lot of what we've learned is pathetic. It's oppressive history. I have to keep my filter on, but it's really inconsiderate, and in a way, it's very oppressive. It teaches us the oppressive side of history, and it just shows us all this negative. Like, and there's a lot of things that I had to unlearn myself, and I had to teach myself that I'm so much more than what my history paints me out to be. And it's crazy that we still, like in the district, we still learn the same repetitive slaves. And I understand that history is important, but what about the history of the other students in the class? Like Kimani was saying, we should have like ethnic studies that represent our classrooms. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have that, then what's the point? What's the point of teaching students something that doesn't really pertain to them? That's why we lose a lot of students, why a lot of students don't feel engaged. They feel so disconnected emotionally and spiritually because they don't know who they are. And like that history, that missing piece of that puzzle can like make or break a student's like whole career. So I think that if we really like care, then we'll truly dedicate a lot of history and teaching and just what all of what Kimani said. I could go on forever, but I'm gonna stop right there. All of what Kimani said, 100%, I agree with it.
Kat, thank you very much. Zyra and then Anna.
I just want to echo something that a few leaders have already said already. At Henderson, I have two amazing history teachers, Mr. Power and Miss Vanessa St. Leger. They kind of always would teach us the textbook, but then go away from it and say, this is actually what really happened. I'm actually kind of tired of learning about Christopher Columbus and how he was a great man. And I'm tired of learning about how we bombed the Pearl Harbor. Yes, that was bad, but like I'm tired of hearing the same thing over and over, how they talk about how it was their fault, but really it wasn't their fault. I want to go deeper actually into the cultures that we learned about and skip through the history book. I feel like ethnic studies shouldn't just be a class, be incorporated into our daily classes, be incorporated into our regular history classes, because world history and American history isn't just the colonizers and the white people. It's the slavery, it's the Jim Crow era. It's more than that. It's our culture. It's us getting our head shaved right before we get put on that ship. It's more than just the slaves and the colonizers and the chopping of the heads. It's the deep rooted, it's just everything. And I feel like we don't really talk about that in our day-to-day classes and just history in general. And I feel like if we're able to reconstruct our history classes around ethnic studies as a whole on top of our classes, it would change the mindsets of so many people, change the way they speak and present themselves, and just change their thoughts and ideas that they originally had from the past and from their ancestors.
Thank you, Zyra. And then Anna.
Just want to respect the time. I'm going to go over something really quickly. I stand behind everything that my peers have said, and to add very quickly, it's very important for our race and ethnic classes to reflect every single student we have within the district. As such a diverse district like the Boston Public Schools, we have so many different cultures. And it's really important that every single student and teacher reflect the culture they're teaching and have lived experiences that could connect with what they're teaching, because their real lived experiences will allow them to connect with the students and teach from, the root of the history rather than what is on the surface. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you, everyone. I don't see any other hands up. Counselor Flaherty. Thank you, Counselor Arroyo. Counselor Flaherty. Counselor Flaherty, do you have questions for this afternoon? Perhaps he's got additional technical difficulties. Counselor Flynn. Hi.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Sabi George, for this important discussion. Thank you to the students that are participating and for your leadership on this discussion as well. Enjoyed listening to the questions from my colleagues, but also enjoyed listening and learning about your answers and your life experience. I don't have any particular questions other than to say, keep up the tremendous work that you're doing. And I think Catherine mentioned it. One of my main focuses as a city councilor is language and cultural access, especially for our immigrant neighbors across the city. What we do in support of our immigrant families is critical. They don't have a voice in government or society. They may be undocumented, but they deserve to be treated fairly and with respect. And I know that's what you're advocating for here today and in your life. So thank you for giving me a few minutes to talk to you, but I especially learned a lot just listening to you. Thank you, Councilor Sabi George.
Thank you, Counselor Flynn. And thank you, colleagues, for all of your questions. We'll certainly have an opportunity for a second round if anyone has a burning additional question. I do want to say before I ask my question, actually I should set my own timer, how grateful I am for the thoroughness of your presentation and the thoughtfulness into the components of that presentation and sort of the things that you as a group, as a body, as young people want to focus on, because I do believe as young people, you've got a much healthier outlook in the work and sort of what needs to happen. I do want to make just a quick note that, I'm fully supportive, in full support of the student vote, as I'm the one that filed the home rule petition for that. We are sort of disappointed and anxious that we haven't been able to move as quickly as we'd like to on that piece, as well as the stipend piece as well. For sure, without a doubt, there can be some great deliberation and discussion around the student vote, but there should be zero discussion around the reimbursement or the stipend compensation piece for the student member of the Boston School Committee. We are going to have a hearing in March. I don't think that date's been confirmed yet, but we are looking forward to moving quickly on that. I'd love it if you could, and I also can't wait to participate in the platform. I can't wait to read the platform and participate in the forum regarding that platform as the election season heats up. I would love to hear a little bit about the relationship from anyone here, students, of course, but Maria or Jenny may be able to add to this as well. But I'd love to hear from the students about the relationship between BSAC and BPS and Youth on Board and what that relationship looks like formally and informally. Students want to start with it? Yeah, but maybe Maria. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, Maria.
Sure. Jenny could give a little bit more of the history. So it's a very formal partnership. I would not consider it typical when you think of partnerships. We function and we actually are seen as sort of a national model. We have what we call an inside-outside partnership. And so the way we administer the program, we have 2 staff members that Kat did a beautiful job explaining sort of the BPS support end of it. And so myself and Jenny Fernandez administer and the internal end of it. And we are under the Office of Student, Family, and Community Advancement. And we have a whole other sort of level of support from Monica Roberts and some other staff members. So we work very closely as a team. In addition to that, we have the Youth on Board arm of that work. And so with the support of Youth on Board, there's additional funding additional staffing. I mean, the way we run our program is because of the capacity that Youth on Board builds for us to be able to do the work that we do and to have the staff that we have. And so I'm going to take a guess at the numbers, but I think we're close to maybe 10 or 11 direct program staff from the Youth on Board end. With Jenny Sazama, and then with also a development director and other folks that really think about how do we provide stipends for our young people? How do we provide transportation if there's a late night meeting? There's all these other resources that come as part of that. And this has been 20 plus years in the making. So before my position even existed and Bsac was really up and running, Youth on Board was already on the ground. Really putting in place the systems and the structures to support young people being at the table. And I'm not sure how many of the young people that are on the call actually know this history. And so Jenny was very critical and her team in pushing the district to really think about building the capacity internally to have a position to support the Bsac work. And so that is how I came to this position 16 plus years ago. So Jenny, I don't know if you want to add a little bit more of the history or fill in some of the gaps.
Yeah. Great question, Anissa. Basically the history about, well, I don't know if people on this call know that Bsac was put forward as a law by youth activists back around the desegregation time. So it was, it's a state law that every city and town in Massachusetts is supposed to have a SAC. And if you go onto the Board of Education website, it's hidden somewhere, but it is there. So we got a phone call about 25 years ago from one of the Boston School Committee members and said, you know, isn't this what you guys do? Aren't we supposed to have a student on the school committee? So we came in and helped create this partnership. I said, I've known Maria for years, and I said, I know exactly the person that needs to work on this. They gave us a choice of should Maria's position, it was funded by Carnegie money originally. And should that, and Bill Gates, the Gates money also funded the position. And they said, should Maria be part of Youth on Board staff or should be BPS staff? So we said BPS staff for sure. So it's this beautiful inside outside partnership. What we have here is we have a group of young people that can have access to the superintendent on a bi-weekly basis, have access to the city council, and can push from the outside. It is an incredible model. And it would not work without this incredible team of young people really being like, it's like this balance. And it gets tricky sometimes because sometimes when you're getting funding and you're trying to think about pushing, and Kamani has been, just so generous with us about, sort of knowing that there's limitations on some things that we can do. I guess the only other thing I would say is that we've raised probably $10 million over the years in grant funding to support this program.
That's great. I actually didn't realize I was a member of Bsac, I think like 1988, 91 or so. So post 91, there was a period of time where there wasn't a student member on the school committee.
Yes, for maybe 10 years.
Oh, really? I'm surprised to learn that. I should do a little bit more.
And Maria's position used to sit in the city.
Yeah.
So you probably know that.
Yeah, that I recall. I'm really old. Well, so I appreciate, I do want to make sure if my colleagues, thank you, Jenny, thank you, Maria. If my colleagues have additional questions, we'll start back in the same order. Councillor Braden.
I have no further questions, Councillor Sammy George. I also need to jump off for another meeting. So thank you all for all your great work and continue to move forward and upward. And I look forward to continuing the conversation at a later time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Braden. We'll go through, and we've also been joined by Councillor Bach. We'll get to Councillor Bach in a few. Councillor Campbell, additional questions for the panel this evening?
No, I just thank you. I just wanted to, I had one other question around ethnic studies, but I think everyone answered that. So done. So thank you, because it's critically important. So I appreciated all the students' comments on that. I guess one question I have is specifically if anyone has thoughts on the current proposed budget. Obviously, the council will at some point go through the budget process. We were reviewing it. So I didn't know if students had some immediate thoughts on the proposed budget. And then, of course, Maria and Jenny, thank you so much for your leadership, for your hard work as well. Obviously, we're thanking the students, but thank you both as well. And I'll just say, if no one has any comments on the budget, it's important.
I mean,
I was like, Kimani, you have comments on the budget. But
I'm sure
I do
Kimani's
want
going
to
to comment on it, some sort of current reflection.
Thank you. And I do want to just go on the record because I know it's a hearing that's coming up on the stipend and the vote for the student. Yes, yes, and yes. And so really appreciate Bisac's leadership and advocacy on this particular point. So I didn't say that earlier, but did want to lift that up. Yeah, and Kimani or anyone else, if you guys have thoughts on just the initial budget. That's all I have, Councilor Savage-George. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I was almost hoping that no one was going to ask that. Thank you, Councilor Campbell. Always a pleasure. I have been going through my budget packet every day, actually, with Nate Cooter, some Bsacers, a nonprofit that works to sort of analyze BPS's budget. Number one is the amount of funding and grants that is not funneled through BPS's calculation for the budget. BLS has a $60 million endowment and they're getting $33 million from the district. That in itself is unacceptable, and it is the sort of epiphany of when we talk about inequities. That's just what it is. I brought that up at school committee the week before vacation, and the response from I believe it was Monica Roberts, is that the district, I believe, is currently or is going to be expecting to work with work to draft some type of policy that that sort of puts into place guardrails or some type of oversight. That's what I was looking for, some type of oversight when we talk about what individual schools and BPS are doing in their fundraising and how that sort of represents inequities in BPS. So that in itself is alarming to me. Another thing that I noticed is that the ESSER money that the district is using, something that I've spoken to with the nonprofit that I'm working with to dig into this budget, is that this is being split between school year FY22, so 21 through 22, which is coming up. And then it's also being, the other portion is being split for 22 to 23. And I think what a lot of community members are upset about, and I would love for you to, put your eye on this when you do go through the budget process, is that the district isn't allowing the district isn't allocating enough money from these ESSER funds for this upcoming school year. And it's critical that we're putting in whatever we can, specifically from federal aid, because we are going to be getting more. I think it's really critical to put and allocate a lot of money into our students this upcoming school year because we're transitioning out of COVID. And I would say, my third last concern, I can go on for days. I would love to have another conversation with you, but I think sort of the last thing, and this doesn't have to do specifically with the budget, but it's about the budget, is that students and a lot of community members don't know how to read the budget and aren't aware of the budget. And I would love to see some push and some solutions, sort of presented by the city council to really make sure that we're giving community members the chance, because they have the chance to come and speak about the budget. That's public comment, but they can't speak about the budget if they don't know how to read it. So how are we adequate? How are we going to create a system where we can teach people, like, this is what this means, this is what that means, etc., and actually, push them to get involved. I didn't know how to read the budget. I had to sit down it was a 3-hour meeting with Nate Cooter. And it wasn't even discussing the actual details of the budget. It was more so, well, where do I flip to if I want to know this? Or what does this mean? What does this acronym mean? It's what Katie was talking about. It's information justice. Again, I can go on forever. I would love to have.
No, this is very helpful. I'm sure my time ran out, but thank you, Councilor Savage-George. Thank you. And I know Councilor Bach is on here and has done some really great things to open up our processes so there is a deeper understanding. So perfect timing, Councilor Bach. Thank you, Councilor Savage-George, and thank you to all the students.
Thank you, Councilor Campbell. Next, we have Councilor Mejia. Another round of questions, Councilor Mejia.
Yes, sorry, I have bad connection, so not sure if you can hear me, but I will not be on camera. So I don't have any questions in particular, but I just want to raise up that that I think that we need to be really super mindful of this work that the young people are doing and not give them lip service, right? Because oftentimes we say that young people are the future, but we rarely create opportunities for them to be such. And I think that Kimani is right on point in terms of, saying that we need to think about this for all ages, right? We would love for our budget conversations to be informed by students. I know that the Boston City Council the Boston mayor, the mayor has a youth line item that's like $1 million something that they get to allocate. But I think that when you are thinking about budgets and youth voice, I think that youth should have a voice in all pieces of city government, right? And creating an opportunity for them to talk about housing, to have young people talking about public safety. It should not just be, you all are the Bsac and you just talk about education, or you are the mayor's council and you only talk about this. I think that if we're really serious about creating space for young people, then we need to be intentional about how many seats we create for them to be in leadership positions. And I think that the budget, and I'm so glad that Councilor Campbell asked that question, is that when it comes to the budget, that is the biggest responsibility that the city council has. And if we're not taking our direction from young people, because you are the ones who are sitting in these seats, well, not literally, not right now, y'all on, remote learning, y'all are sitting at home, but in the normal sense, you'll be in these schools sitting in front of these teachers. And I think that your voice is critically important in terms of shaping what we're fighting for. And the young person that talked about language access, your story resonated with me so much. It like, my mom still to this day does not know how to speak English. And she didn't even go beyond 3rd grade, so didn't even know how to read and write, even in her own native language, right? And so that piece around information justice is something that is deeply important to me, and I'm glad to see that you all brought it into this space, because information justice is part of equity. And so just incredibly grateful for you all, and all the work that you do. And Jenny, thank you so much for your leadership. Maria, I just think that youth and adult collaboration are really important. And as we continue to do this work, always centering it on the experts, and the young people are the experts in these spaces. And so we take our leadership and our direction from them. So thank you for all that you do. Continue to be as fabulous as you are. And I'm here for all of it.
Thank you very much, Councilor Mejia, and excited as me and my office work on our City Council Youth Council around rolling out some very intentional and thoughtful ways to include student voice in all of the work of the City Council, because it is so much more than education, and grateful that the students today, through their presentation, have identified things outside of the educational space in which they focus on. Thank you for all of that. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, just thank you all for your very thoughtful, honestly incredible in some ways, ethnic studies question answers. I think one of the things that I took away from that is it's troubling to me that it was repeatedly said that in order for you to actually get true ethnic studies, your teachers had to walk away or step away from the textbook, which for me screams that we have to analyze exactly what textbooks we're putting in front of our students to begin with, and have some kind of system or format of screening what you're seeing. I mean, I read, on a personal level, I read the books I give my nieces and nephews before I give them those books. And so at a minimum, we should be doing this for our BPS students, because any book that is telling you anything about Christopher Columbus that is the opposite of rape and genocide of an entire generation of people is problematic to me. And this was the same issue I had with BPS history books when I was in school. As far as, your vote for a student representative and a stipend, obviously, I'm wildly in support of that. But I think my one question for you all is, we've talked about, and this was prior to COVID, so I don't know how remote learning has really impacted this, but inclusionary learning, and what different models of inclusionary learning make sense in terms of how many teachers we have in the classroom and how that works and how that operates. And so, obviously COVID and working remotely, I don't know how that's impacted any of that in a positive way. But I guess my question for you all, and whoever wants to answer it, if nobody feels equipped to answer it, do you have an inclusionary model that you've gone through, that you believe in, or that you have heard, that you support? What, if you have any opinion or thoughts on just the inclusionary models presented for how we work in classrooms?
Could I just ask a clarifying question quickly? You're asking about inclusionary models in regards to like having students of different needs in one classroom learning together, correct?
Yes, exactly so. Thank you so much. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I just wanted to ask for clarification, make sure I answered the question correctly. So I wasn't a part of, I actually just joined Bsac this year, so I wasn't a part of it last year when that discussion came up. But I think one way that I've seen, so I go to Boston Arts Academy, which is a full inclusive school. So we have a wide variety of students of different needs, all learning within the same classroom. And I think one transition this year, that it's kind of rocky because we're still working out the kinks of it, but I think it's actually really, really helping, is the grading policy and our switch to an outcomes-based grading system. And so what that allows us to do is, in classes, rather than being given an assignment, and it's like you have to do it in this particular way to receive an A or a B, it transitions into showing whether you're proficient or high performing in an outcome, and students are allowed to showcase that they're understanding the content in a way that's most effective for them. So whether that's writing a paper, or if it's creating a presentation, or doing like a graphic model or a slide. And I think that's been really helpful for different students of different needs, especially students that are neurodivergent. So last week, like Kimani said, many of us held these town halls, and one of the biggest things we heard was in regards to mental health, there's a huge lack of support for our neurodivergent students, especially with the transition to remote learning, and how a lot of neurodivergent students have struggled because they've gone from having this in-person schedule to now having to fully transition it to remote learning, and how it's been hard to accommodate to the online learning. And so I think having outcomes-based grading, where one, it also pushes this emphasis on students really taking full control of their education and being able to identify their learning styles, and being able to identify how they can best grab content and concepts. I think it's really beneficial. And when looking at an inclusive setting and an inclusive classroom, it allows students, like you mentioned, of different needs to really be able to learn in the ways that they need. And it also, I think in my school, we have at least one support in the room, like a secondary teacher for students that might have special needs. But I've even seen classrooms where we have one teacher, and now it's working because students are able to freely ask questions and vocalize how they need to grasp the content. I hope that answered your question.
No, that was incredibly helpful. I appreciate that. I also, obviously students learn in different visual mediums. So my brother is actually an alum of BAA. So it doesn't surprise me that they would find different ways for folks to express themselves and make sure that they're showing their content that actually makes a lot of sense. And so I appreciate that answer very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Flaherty, I think, has left my screen, and as has, sorry, just looking at my screen from a distance here. Councilor Bach, welcome. If you'd like to give, I'll give you a few extra moments if you'd like to give some general statements and ask some questions of our Boston Student Advisory Council members.
Thanks so much, Madam Chair. I think I was late enough that I don't want to risk asking questions that folks have already answered. And I'm going to have to review the tape for the first hour. I definitely want to lift up what Kamani said about information justice and the budget, and say that I would love to work with Bsac around the school budget. I also think there's a dynamic for the council where the school budget, like we have this weird relationship to the school budget, because the only thing we vote on at the end of the day is the absolute number, because the line items are all voted on at the school committee level. And so sometimes that can be a frustration to us, but I think that what our process can do is create like a lot of space for like the real public education about the budget, and going back and forth on what our priorities are and how it's structured. So I think it's like we don't have as much line item power as we might sometimes want, but I think we have a lot of power to create a space for more people to wrap their arms around it and feel like these dollars and cents that really affect your lives and your family's lives, like actually, that you know about them, and you know how to advocate to change them when it makes sense. So would love to work with Bsac on that. And also definitely add me to the chorus of folks who strongly think that the student should have both the stipend and vote. I think it's really important. And I think the reality is that once you're in those rooms and paying attention, like Kamani is, you're doing all the thinking work so both and spending all the time. And so from a compensation perspective, that's obvious, but also I think that the student voice is just as likely to come to a good judgment about what we need in our schools as any other member of the committee. And personally, I'm somebody who would love to see us lower the age of the franchise and give, also give 16, 17-year-olds a chance to vote as well in our, municipal elections and beyond. So conversation for another day, but just, have always found you all really inspiring. And again, I'm sorry that I was at another commitment and so late to this table. So I won't take up too much more airtime, but look forward to the collaboration on the budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bach. And I know that a few students had to peel off at the 5:30 hour. So I'll use this as an opportunity to ask the last question, unless someone from central staff tells me otherwise. I think we have no public testimony. I am curious, and we'll talk about this in greater detail at our student vote hearing, but I am curious about how we encourage students to join Bsac. How do we make sure that we do have that 100% representation and understand that we're so close to that, what that process looks like and how students are engaged in Bsac?
I would love to answer this as briefly as I can, because I hate feeling as though I talk too much. You kill two birds with one stone and you implement city government into the classroom. We need a civics course that gives students the information about how Boston politics is ran. Here's what school committee is, and here are the people that are on school committee. Hey, there's this amazing thing called public comment that you can go to. You know what? You don't have to do a written homework assignment. Your homework assignment is to go to public comment, give a public comment, come back the next day, and let's talk about it. That's your homework assignment, because you have demonstrated that you understand how a school committee in your city works. Let's learn about city council. Who are the members of city council? What do they do? What's their jurisdiction? What falls under their sort of jurisdiction and what doesn't? Go to a city council hearing, listen to one that is passionate, and some committee hearing that goes to your passion. Let's talk about the mayor. We need to start teaching our students in the classroom what systems in local government are in place. That needs to be a civics course, period. It needs to be a civics course. Students should not have to go out their way to go learn it, because that's independent studies that they're not getting compensated for and that they're not getting credit for. And once you put that into the classroom, they're going to be like, wow, all these different avenues where I can go and express my concerns and my ideas. You know what? I'm going to do that. And that's how you get more people engaged, because youth care. Youth care. I met with so many different youth last week during February break that I've never met before. And once I told them what was going on in the district and what school committee was, what city council was, what the mayor does, we put together an entire presentation. They were mind blown. And these people currently, right now, as we speak, are writing public comment, getting ready to actually utilize and amplify their own voices.
Thank you very much, Kimani. Kat and then Anna.
Again, Kimani said it all. I think that we should just mandate these type of things in classes and just teach people that's the power, or not people, the young people, the power of their voices. Because right now, everybody feels silenced. Like, I hear a lot of students in my class say, "Oh, like I don't feel like I have a voice in the district. I don't know what's going on." And usually things happen to get to them when they're already happening, or it's too late for them to do anything about it. So I think, rather than waiting until it's too late, how about you actually implement our voices into the conversation when things are just starting to get created? Just like Kimani's saying, make sure that it's mandated in classes and that they're taught about this. Because yeah, all the courses are great and all. Like, sure, I mean, learning whatever I learned in math and whatever is good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's important. But like, this is far more important because it dictates how my 4 years or however many years I spend in BPS is gonna look like. And if I don't have a say in that, what's the point of me being a part of BPS? It doesn't make any sense to have other people have me on a leash and run me around. I'm not an animal, so stop treating me like one. That's how I view it. And I think that just adults in general should stop viewing young people as objects. Like they can do whatever they want with us. That's how it feels like. And just removing the adults' frameworks that are in place and things of that nature. And then also making sure that we ensure that teachers and principals, because principals don't tell us. I didn't find out what Bsac was until my junior year. That's pathetic. I've been throwing around the pathetic word a lot, but like this is truly upsetting that I didn't find out about it, because I would have loved to have been a part of Bsac my freshman year, working my way up, building all the connections I could have been building, and actually helping make a difference in the district. So yeah, I just think that making sure that school officials are actually like to the whole school, not just a select few too. That's another thing that irritates me. All students are not given an equal opportunity, I think, and that's something that we really need to tackle as well. But that's a whole nother conversation. All students should be treated equally. All students should be brought to the table. So that's my take on it.
Thank you very much. Then Anna, and then we'll finish with Nesaj.
I just wanted to provide some more context on the civics course. So for the past, 3-4 years that I've been on Bsac, we've actually worked on creating a civics course within the curriculum. However, that course is not mandated and it needs to be mandated. So every single student have access to this course. And we have to make sure that is, funded fully within the Boston Public Schools budget, because we need to make sure that every single school, no matter, if they're a charter, if they are, exam schools, if they are, your pilot schools, every single school within our district deserves equal access to these programs, not just a select few schools that have, additional resources. It's really important, that equity piece all across the board.
Thank you very much. And then Nesaj.
Yes, Counselor, thank you. I just had to make it clear that Bsac should be taught in civics classes so that students who are actually passionate about the work can go and join. I also have to say this. Kiwani became the student representative 6 months after joining Bsac. Katie didn't find out about Bsac till her senior year. I didn't find out about Bsac till my junior year. Patio didn't find out about Bsac till his junior year, and now look, he's the president. That it's a pattern. We need to be teaching students about what Bsac is. We need to be teaching about what a city councilor is, and we need to make it relate to them, because students don't care if it doesn't relate to them. And lastly, we need students teaching other students. I'm not interested in an adult telling me something they have nothing, they have no knowledge about, they don't know about at all. We need students teaching other students. We need them getting community service hours, just like you get community service hours to be a manager for a football team. We need them getting community service hours, just how they get community service hours to go answer a phone call in the office. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you very much. I saw that Maria had her hand up, perhaps to share something.
Yes, thank you, Counselor. So the only other thing I would add, yes, agree with everything the young people said, is that at the school-based level, we need to figure out how to build the capacity of the staff. So that ties back into the adultism trainings and really having young people be at the center. And it's something that we have struggled when we think about the budget at the district level, is how do we at least have one adult ally at the school-based level that's thinking about the civics course, that's making sure the school has a student government structure, that makes sure there's an assembly, right? Because at the end of the day, our schools are run by adults, right? And the young people have only as much power as the school will give them. And so unless we have an adult that is there, that's an ally, that creates the space and really supports the young people in what they're pushing for and creates the space for those conversations, and that the leadership is thinking about how they run their school, right? How do you create those opportunities? And it is a question of capacity. Like, how do we build that capacity at the school-based level? And it's something that, we've been doing this work for so many years that it comes and goes, right? Some years we have a family liaison, some years we don't. We face a budget cut. So how are we consistent across all of our schools and creating those opportunities in those spaces?
We'll go to Catherine next, but by a show of hands, how many of you have a student government or a student council at your school? Right. I mean, to me, that seems like such a natural fit for the relationship and capacity at school. Go ahead, Connie, and then we'll go to Catherine and Katie.
I'm sorry, I just really quickly had to say, City Councilor Sabi George, while many of us here may have a student government at our schools, I just wanted to point out that a lot of the time our student government, as I can speak about mine specifically at BLA, is for show, it's performative. Administrators don't really allow them to have any actual influence at the table, at the space. When we talk about student voice, we don't want student voice anymore. That was acceptable 10 plus years ago. Now we want it to be translated into policy. We're asking for something and we're asking for more power. So, any school can easily put in place a student government, but it's about the fact of, are administrators in that school being held to that expectation, and are there consequences for lack thereof when it comes to them actually upholding and elevating student voice?
Great. And then I think, Katie, I see your hand up. Katie? And maybe we'll.
Catherine can go. She was gonna go before me. I'll let Catherine go.
Oh, Catherine, yeah, go ahead. Catherine, then Katie will wrap us up for the afternoon.
Okay, I was really going to echo on what Nisaj said. Let the students teach for once. I am tired of having to sit in a classroom where teachers just pass papers and don't really care about the topics they're really teaching. So yes, let the students teach. I think that I have been like a broken record when I am really trying to emphasize on the varieties of languages. I definitely 100% I am putting myself in the line. We understand a lot better when we are speaking in our home languages, and this is something important. So let's normalize this, and let's say you as a student, you can teach this in several languages because we want students to be engaged. I myself struggle with big vocabularies. I myself struggle with knowing all the terms that happen in the district, everything. I have a hard time. So I know students who aren't flipped yet are going to have a harder time. So I am just really trying to advocate and just let's normalize this being in different languages, because at the end of the day, America is not only English. America doesn't have a language set down in barriers. So let's literally lift that up and be in multiple languages, because I want students to be able to understand and really be able to engage within our district. And I am sure, well, at least I hope that Boston wants that as well.
Thank you, Catherine. And I would love, before we go to Katie, who I'll have for last closing statements, I'd love if you could share that specific Bsac curriculum that's been referenced with us. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Katie.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo off of what Maria had shared about us needing to have adult allies in our schools that are willing to push for students to be in leadership. I just think we just need to scratch the idea and have a district mandate policy. Like, you have to have students at the table. It's not a question. We just need to eliminate this adultist rhetoric that it's up to the adults to decide whether or not us students are allowed to be present. I'm going off of the discussion of Bsac. I didn't know what Bsac was until this year, after I was told I could not run for student body president at my school. And so my school appointed me to Bsac. I honestly, if I'm being fully transparent, I thought I was going to go to the first meeting of Bsac and then not attend again. And luckily, I fell in love with the work and realized it's the place for me. It's the place for my voice to be amplified. And I was passionate about the work. But that just goes to show how little our district is doing to inform our students. And going back to what Kimani was sharing about student government being performative, up until this year, I have people on my student government that have been in student government for 4 years and don't know what Bsac was. It wasn't until this year that I started advocating and said, Bsac needs to not only be on student government, but it needs to be an e-board position. At the end of the day, I'm not just representing, the senior class. I'm representing everybody in our school at a district level. And so we really need to amplify that. And through this year, I've seen my school go through a transformative process where now we have students at every single faculty senate meeting. Students are leading the grading policy task force to have this initiative to have an anti-racist grading policy. I push and I simply tell, and I think we need to normalize this, that students are the ones really guiding our adults in power. Like this, there would be no district if there was no us, and we need to normalize students giving feedback. Like, I simply tell my principal, and luckily Miss Clark, the principal of Boston Arts Academy, she's amazing and she's all for student voice and involvement. And so she really takes in what we say. But we simply have a policy now in our school that if a student is in a decision-making body in the school, they are not sitting there if they do not have a voting right. And with every decision-making body, there has to be at least not one, but 2 or 3 students present. And we have to have students. I've really been pushing that it can't just be student gov representatives. When I go to faculty senate, I bring in students that are not a part of student gov. I'm bringing the quiet students that usually sit in the back of the class and don't turn their cameras on, because we need to hear everybody. And I think we really need to normalize that within our district. It goes back to Bsac and having students teach other students, because honestly, us as students, as a young person myself, I respond better when a young person is telling me how my voice can be heard. I have close to 10 students from my school coming to give public comment at school committee tomorrow. Like they would have not known if I had not joined BSAC. They would not have known what public comment was, what school committee was. They're coming in with issues that I haven't even thought about. We have students coming with the fact that seniors are receiving no support district-wide because they're talking to their friends from 10 other high schools that it's not just their own, and how they've received minimal to no support. And so our students, I think we really, like I keep saying, we need to normalize the idea that our students are the ones that truly know best within the district. We are the ones experiencing it firsthand. So we're the ones that can honestly probably provide the best solutions. So I just want to emphasize that and emphasize the fact that we need to have students in every single decision-making policy, every single decision-making body present. And we need to normalize the fact that this needs to be a district-wide thing. This can't just be left up to schools anymore. We just need to eliminate this entirely district-wide, because then we're going to keep running into the same issues that we have now, where some schools do other things. We spoke about this last week in our town halls, where I was even talking about AP and dual enrollment courses. The exam schools, I only have one AP course offered in my school. Like, we just need to normalize this fact that this autonomy can be no longer. We just have to, things that every student deserves for their voice to be heard. Every student deserves a vote. So it just has to be district mandated. But yeah, I know we're on a time crunch, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Katie. I'll go to Jenny, and then we will wrap up with Catherine for a closing comment. Thank you, Jenny.
Well, first of all, Councillor Asabi-George, this is amazing. And one of the things that's happening here, if you can see that there's discussions that we are, like Maria and I are taking mad notes, because there are discussions.
It's all recorded. It's all recorded. Right. So you can go back and watch it.
But one of the things that's happening is, like, I'm hearing from the students things that this format has allowed to bring out, right? And one of the things I just want to tell the students is the 3 generations before you did pass a policy. There is a mandate that every school is supposed to have a student government, but it's an unfunded mandate, right? So there isn't, and often the person that's in charge of the student government at the school is a junior teacher who leaves after a year or two. So we do have some of these policies in place. And what we need to do, I don't remember who said it, that young people need to hear from the young people, is I think that the superintendent would be very open. I don't think we've ever had a superintendent that has been more in favor of youth voice ever before. And I think that she would be, if we put together a proposal about what actually needed to happen, the funding piece is another issue, but if we could put a proposal together about how student government and youth voice needs to get talked about and BSAC needs to get put out in the world, I think she would listen to us. It would take some organizing to make things happen, but this is amazing.
And I'm very happy to help with any of that. As I've said before many times, Bsac played a really important role in my life through my high school years. Catherine.
I don't know, I just want to thank you so much for having us here. And I also noticed that our social media director, and I am so glad that you guys are here supporting Bsac and all the projects we've been talking about. So please follow us. I know I'm using this to advertise, I'm so sorry, but please follow us at Bisac Buzz on Twitter and Instagram. Please allow us to grow bigger and amplify our voice. At the end of the day, we're students, all of us, and we're here to learn, and we just want the best. And I just, again, sincerely hope Boston does as well.
I think that is the most appropriate way to end this hearing this afternoon. I do hope that this continues to be an annual presentation, in addition to having Bsac voice at all of our other education-related hearings, especially, but all of our hearings, that this policy review for your goals, your work, your platforms for the year ahead becomes an annual hearing and presentation. As I noted, today's hearing on docket number 0170 was recorded. It will be rebroadcast. It will be available. So it's available for sharing on social media, and will be available for rebroadcast and for all of you to save. So with that, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great evening. Bye, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. We made history tonight.
Thank you.
There we
Bye.
go. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jenny. Bye.
That was great. That was great.
Thank you. No,
Really
thank
great.
you. Bye.
Bye.